Someone came to Angie and said there's a woman sitting at the table and she's crying. She said, I'm just, it's my birthday and I'm just going through a lot of things, but I'm going to be fine. About a week later, a card came thanking us here at the Spoon and Cheryl about the fact that she was here to have her last meal. She was leaving here to go commit suicide. But there are things like that.
Welcome to The Huddle, another installation of a conversation of the minds. I'm so glad to be in the historic Serving Spoon. Serving Spoon has been a staple in Inglewood City for probably over 30 years. And because of it, it's done so many commuters. They've done so much in the community. And I'm here today with my brother and my good friend, J.C. Johnson. Welcome to The Huddle, Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sheffer.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. I wanted to have Jerry on the show because Jerry, he's my, like in The Godfather, they have what you call the counsel. He's always been my counsel. So when I face different difficult situations in my life, I know that I could go to him and right or wrong, he's going to tell me his opinion on what it is that I should do. Sometimes I listen and most of the time I don't, but nevertheless,
that's the problem, right?
Nevertheless, we still here. But Jerry, I wanted to talk to you and just talk to you about growing up in Los Angeles. Like, where are you from, Jerry?
Man, I'm from this soil, man, and enjoying this good food right now, though, from the Serving Spoon, which, by the way, this is our 37th year.
37th year.
37th year, man.
That's dope to have 37 years in business. Growing up in Los Angeles, and you were growing up in the 60s?
Yes, I was born in 63, so I just celebrated my 57th birthday, and my wife, now of almost 35 years, just celebrated hers as well. I'll let her tell you, if she was to tell you what the age was.
Yeah, don't do that. We don't want no problems. We don't want no problems. How was it growing up in Los Angeles in the 60s? Like, what was the temperature of the city?
Interesting enough, man. I grew up at a time and in a place initially where there was a myriad and a very diverse culture and ethnicity in the Baldwin Vista area. And my parents, which both were from Louisiana, they met, northern Louisiana to be exact. They met out here in LA in the 50s and got married. Father started a catering business with catering trucks. And that's where I got my hustle from. And between the catering trucks that he owned and the vending machines that he had, they were able to buy a home in Baldwin Vista. And like I said, it was very diverse. But there were some things that were in place that impacted us after some years. And that was that of a gambling addiction that my father had. And I would go ahead and venture to say a spending addiction that my mother had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so
you can't have both of those together.
Yeah. Eventually they intersected and we ended up losing everything and actually became homeless.
Y'all were homeless?
Homeless, man. And I say that because at first I didn't understand that. I just knew we were living in different motels throughout LA. And this was around the time I was like 10 years old. But I found out later in life through working with through a program that you hear the Serving Spoon had with a few of the missions downtown on Skid Row, that homelessness is also defined by living in day motels. I didn't know that. So based on that definition,
you don't have a permanent residency.
Right, exactly. So that was, my upbringing was somewhat of a prince and a pauper story. Started off
very good.
And then it went all bad. Ended up, like I said, living in different motels throughout LA, lived on the east side, Watts, finally settled in the Jays and the jungles. And
but the jungles back then was a different jungles than the jungles today, though, right?
To an extent.
It's more middle class?
Mm-mm. It wasn't. It was more middle class, but you still had
the element.
The element was still there. This was like in the early 70s, around mid 70s. Take that back, and 74ish. And there still was that element Sherm Alley existed. Um,
Sherm Alley. What was Sherm Alley?
Well, Sherm Alley was actually a spot where PCP was moved.
Wow.
So the thing was, based on my background for those first 10 years, I had been isolated and insulated from anything like that.
Now, were you a church boy during this time?
Yeah, I was raised in the Baptist church, and I had relatives that were either pastors or preachers. My father eventually became a preacher. In fact, he married Angie and I. But so it was a very diverse situation coming from where I initially came from to all of a sudden being thrown into that. And it was either fight or flight, and I couldn't fly. Excuse me. So that's what it became.
So often in the podcast, I talk about how in each young man's life comes a crossroads. And in this crossroads, you go from the dreams of wanting to be a basketball player or a doctor or a lawyer. And then you get hit with the hard reality that you might want to be a gangster, or you might want to be a hustler because of the thing. So the other day I was talking to somebody and we were talking about systemic racism, and people were just like, well, if people do the crime, they should go to jail. But that's just so black and white.
Right.
Life isn't black and white like that, because there are variables which contribute to the choices that individuals make. And some of those variables are, during the era that you came up, they dropped crack cocaine off into the communities. They dropped guns off in the communities. They dropped drugs. And we didn't have any place to manufacture the drugs. We didn't have any place we weren't going through the Panama Canal,
right,
bringing cocaine back.
Right.
But the powers that be that did, they empowered these young men with illegal substances in order to get them for them to change their lives and become a lucrative business illegally.
Right.
But then after they dropped them off and did it, then they incarcerated these same young men for doing the things that they gave them to do. So the point being, growing up in the era that you were growing up in, at what age was it when you got to the point where those dreams took a turn?
They actually took a turn, and I remember the year, in 1976.
Bicentennial year.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. And that somewhat makes it easier to remember. And what transpired was that I was in the 7th grade, and
what junior high school?
I started at Audubon, but I got kicked out for inciting a riot.
Oh, wow.
And so, and that riot that I incited.
Riot for what, though?
Well, I won't get too much into it, but I'm going to put it this way. It was either going to be me or them, and it wasn't going to be me. And so had to go ahead and create a diversion so that I could
get away.
Exactly. And so they found out that I was the one that did it, so they kicked me out.
So you've always been a rebel with or without a cause?
With the cause. With the cause.
With or without a cause?
With the cause. Always with the cause. But
so when that happened, what made your dream shift of being that preacher or that teacher or that whatever that was? What was it that caused it to change? And then what was it that you were contemplating doing?
It was funny because I wanted to be a physician, and I wanted to go to West Point Military Academy.
Wow.
And so, but what happened was that when I got kicked out of Audubon, my parents wanted to put me, we were still living in the jungles at that time. We hadn't moved yet, but my parents wanted to put me in a school where they felt that it wouldn't be as dangerous, either for them to me or me to them.
Yeah, especially after you inciting a riot. I would do the same thing. I'd get you the hell out of there.
So what they did, they used an address to get me into a school, which is in the Miracle Mile district, called John Burroughs. You now call it middle school. At that time, it was called junior high school. And I attended Burroughs. And what was unique about Burroughs, it was somewhat reflective of the area that I initially grew up in, with the diversity. The difference is that I had never seen Jews that wore yarmulkes. So in my mind, I was trying to figure out, why are these people walking, are these kids walking around with these bowls on their head?
That's funny.
And so eventually learned about Ashkenaz, Orthodox Jews, or just Ashkenaz Jews, which primarily is who I went to school with there. And because of that diversity, though, I felt as if I was in a safe place. My parents had not at any time taught me about discrimination, racism, even though they came from that, coming from the South, in so many ways. They felt, I believe, that because they had arrived, so to speak, that they didn't need to tell my sister and I, who was 7 years younger than me, about that truth. So at the school, everything was cool with the student body, but the problem became when I became the first Black student body president of that school. I became
How did that create a problem, though?
Well, I'll tell you, the brigade commander of the California Cadet Corps. I was in Cadet Corps. I was brigade commander. So
you were a nerd when you were a kid. At this point, you were a nerd, right?
Actually, really wasn't a nerd. I was a musician.
Were you a hall monitor?
No, man. That was your job, man. That was your job at Audubon, man. I was just a Renaissance young boy.
That's dope.
But I got my exposure to some hood life in the Jays, but I had been exposed early on to all these other things the first 10 years roughly of my life. So music was something that was dear to me. The military aspects. My father had been in the Army. The fact that, I was a Marcus Welby fan, that's before your time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a doctor. So when I get to Borough, I'm taking VIA surgeon class in the 7th grade, somewhat nerdy, but I still had my swag going. The meter was relatively high.
Okay.
But with the kids, it was cool. But with the administration, they had a problem with it. And it got to a point where they knew that I did not live in the district, but they couldn't prove it. To this day, I remember the address that I had to use and recite at any given time.
Wow.
To make sure that that's where
What was their problem with you being there?
The problem, actually, I believe, really came about for two reasons. One, they didn't like the idea that I was able to move the crowd on so many ethnic levels, being the first Black student body president. There was a prior Black 9th grade president who was actually someone that we know.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's dope.
Now it's called Bishop. His name is Howard Swansea.
Oh, wow.
Bishop Swansea was my father in the gospel. Was the first Black 9th grade president.
Oh, wow.
I didn't find that out till years later, of course. But nonetheless, so they didn't like the fact that I was able to, and I ran against some formidable individuals that were not Black. But I think really what pushed the meter where they said, we got to get this Negro out of here, was when I won, I was responsible for signing school budgets. And I saw that there was some misappropriation of funds, and I wouldn't sign the budget.
So you're a whistleblower.
I just said I wasn't doing it. I didn't blow no whistle. But that became a problem. And what they did, they assigned teachers to ride me. Pretty tough.
That's crazy that you would have to face that kind of stuff at such a young age.
Exactly.
And imagine how to deal with that as a young age and not take it personal and think it's about you. So you're saying that you attribute that to being what sort of pushed you into the streets and the other side of life?
No question, man, because I was having anxiety attacks 3 and 4 times a month.
Because you didn't want to go to school?
No, man, because while at school, I didn't understand why I was having to be subjected to this, where I had all these adult white folks that was riding me for no reason. I had to breathe in a paper bag, man, many times, man.
What would your parents?
Well, at that time, my father was ill. You know, we had lost the house and we hit hard times. My mother had to go to work. She wasn't a working woman prior to that. And so my father had osteoarthritis where he couldn't stand up, or rather he couldn't lie down and sleep. So he would have to sleep standing up on crutches. So he wasn't working. He could no longer, you know, support the family by being a businessman. And so he would be the one that would pick me up, take me to Kaiser and get treated for the anxiety. But what ended up happening, once I finally graduated, and by the way, thing was, which was really the coldest thing at this school, is that back then your cum, which is your cumulative GPA, your grades that are in a folder, they didn't use computers. They would go ahead and handwrite the grades.
I remember that.
And so what happened was that I had a counselor. She was black. Her name was Miss Fuller. And she called my dad and said, Mr. Johnson, you come down, take a look at Jerry's cum. Just don't tell them that I told you. And I was carrying a 3.9 GPA at John Burroughs. And when my father came down and looked at my cum, they had changed it to a 1.2. So I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I know them to be true.
Yeah.
And they claim that they had no idea how that happened, blah, whatever the case was. So
did they change it?
They changed it, yeah, because we had proof of my report cards. So when I go to Fairfax, which was the high school that, you know, was the feeder high school based on the address that I was using, I go in and pre-register that summer before. And as I'm walking out, the white man points his finger in my face and says, "You're Jerry Johnson. We heard about you."
So your reputation preceded you.
It went there because in your cum, you know, you always had your picture. So they knew who I was. But when he made that statement to me, mentally, emotionally, damn near physically, I did check out of school, whereby I did graduate from Fairfax with a 1.9 GPA. And so I figured if trying to be successful meant I had to go through this, they could have it. I didn't want it. So, yeah.
And it's like you get accused of being something for so long. If you don't constantly fight it, you become what they were trying to get you to be. It's like a breaking point that transpires and they try to do it. It's just funny, though, when kids have such a powerful presence, a lot of things that try to destroy that child from being a positive influence and push them towards the negative world.
Exactly.
What was your first introduction into, say, that alternative lifestyle? And not alternative lifestyle, but alternative, because, I mean, you on the road, you carrying a 3.0, you doing everything right. What was your first thing to where you saw the attraction of the streets?
It really happened when I finished school.
High school?
High school, right before I finished high school. As I was approaching that, I knew that all the dreams, West Point, out the door. You know, becoming a doctor, at least as I saw it, out the door. And I was introduced to that drug lifestyle as far as on the selling aspect of things by a young lady that I was dating, whose sister was dating a cat that was big in the game. And that's where that introduction came. And I saw that as being a breakout, whereby I said, well, it's not going to happen this way. I can make it happen the other way. So I graduated at 17 from Fairfax. And before I turned 18 in October, I was already out the house with a Porsche and living in Windsor Hills. And that didn't happen by punching a 9 to 5.
Wow.
So
now, were you from a neighborhood like in Los Angeles? For people that don't know, when you're hustling or you're doing something, a lot of times you have to identify with a certain territory or a certain neighborhood. Were you ever from a particular gang?
never gangbang, never identified with a particular neighborhood. What it was because I moved around so much. I was just the type of cat that was able to befriend and be solid no matter where I was without drawing a line in the sand. And it wasn't that I was playing both sides against the middle. It was just during that time you had gangbangers and you had hustlers. And I chose to be on the hustle line.
Yeah.
And
usually the hustlers controlled the gangbangers because they would feed the gangbangers and they would use them for protection, or they would be the muscle, but everybody had their role in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's true. That wasn't a schematic that I used. It was more so that by showing respect, in turn you expect to get it, and that would be the case. So that's pretty much what happened. But the thing was that that was from pretty much from 17 till about 21.
Oh, so not that long.
Wasn't that long, but I lived a very fast life. A very, very, which is one of the reasons why I got married so young too. I had no problem in turning in the card, but the thing was that what really got me out the game was that, I had a cat that was working a spot for me over one of the projects. And I went to go check my trap, so to speak. And there was a woman, as we used to call them back in the day, a strawberry.
Yeah. And what is a strawberry? So for the people that don't know, what strawberry is.
That was a female, was a crackhead that would do pretty much anything for a hard rock, for a high. And she was getting at my boy to try to cop, but she had 3 kids with her. Stair step. Probably the oldest was no more than 3. They were just little babies. And they had on soiled diapers, no shirts, snotty noses, no socks, no shoes. And it was 1 or 2 of them like, Mom, I'm hungry. And I saw that. I said, I can't be a part of this no more. That was my conviction. I've never done a day in jail.
That's dope.
But I wasn't convicted by a judge in a robe or by 12 sitting in a jury booth, but I was convicted by God. And I walked away from that.
Wow. But I mean, how do you walk away from, you driving a Porsche, you living the good life, and how do you walk away from that lifestyle and go back to a regular lifestyle?
That's a good question. The conviction was so cold that I didn't care. I turned over my connects to a buddy of mine who's dead to this day.
Wow.
And everything from the triple beams to, as we call it, yayo back then, I walked away from it, gave it up to him.
And then also you got with Angie, you got with my sister, and at the time you had money.
No, I was broke as the 10 Commandments.
You said broke as 10 Commandments.
Because what happened was, when I walked away from the game.
Oh, you met her after you walked away
right.
from it. Oh, okay.
And it got so bad that the money, I didn't give up the money that I had. But I can't tell you to this day what happened to that money, man. That money went through my fingers like it was sand, to the point where I ended up moving back with my parents.
Wow.
I had no other skill set, and it just vanished. And over time, a short period of time. So when I met Angie, I was actually living with my mother and my father. I had gone back home. And even when we got married, because I was just.
So she didn't get with you because you had.
No, man. She said I'd do to me. I was making $5 an hour gross.
Oh yeah. I don't know. That would have worked today.
Nope. And she'll tell you she saw no potential. She just loved me, man. Wow. And that I knew, but I told her parents about my background because I knew that they would hear and find out. And at that time, of course, her dad did own the restaurant. But I said, hey, listen, just allow us to make our own way. If we need help, appreciate it. But I'm going to do my level best to provide a good living for your daughter.
So when you got out the game, what was the direction that you chose to go as far as a profession?
So it was many things. I've done everything from termite inspecting, crawling underneath houses and attics, to bread man, delivering bread. But the one thing that I had was a little gift of gab. So I got into sales, ranging from everything from what they call Watts phone line, toll-free lines, to long distance services. Make a long story short, finally ended up settling in the healthcare arena and working with healthcare insurance, and then eventually getting into the hospital business. And that was nothing but God, man, because, 95% individuals that had the position that I ended up being promoted to in the hospital world had masters of public health. I don't have an AA, man.
Oh, wow.
So, it was a blessing, and has been, and I don't take it lightly. But I made sure that our children
were educated.
No question.
How many children do you have?
3. My daughter, Jessica, she's 33 of age. Her and her husband, now 2 years, just gave birth about 4 months ago to our first grandchild.
So, granddaddy?
Yeah, that's me.
Beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Happy. You the happy.
I'm your granddaddy. She went to Santa Cruz, attended Claremont, got 2 masters, went to Oxford. My oldest son, Jerry Jr., went to UCLA, graduated in 2012. He's in pharmaceutical sales. He's doing well. Had a short stint in the NFL, but from prior injuries, that of which mainly breaking his fibula, and having to have a titanium plate and 9 screws in it, cut his career short. Then our youngest son, who is a first lieutenant in the Air Force, attended the Air Force Academy, which vicariously
is something that you wanted to do when you were
even though, West Point for me, but he's smarter than me, so he went to the Air Force Academy.
That's dope.
And
that's dope.
He graduated in 2017, and he's now serving in his 3rd year of commitment with the United States Air Force.
That's dope, man. It's dope how your children can fulfill the dreams that you desire to do. I think that's awesome.
Thank you, bro.
I think that's awesome. So, in that transition, was it ever a point when you didn't think that you could make it? And that times were just the pressures of life, because you're going from the hustling to working a regular job, and then with all the things that were going on in society at that time. And then for me, the crazy thing is when you're trying to do the right thing, the Bible talks about, I would to do good, but evil is always present. So
yes,
even in the midst of you doing good and trying to stay on the straight and narrow, the temptation of those enticements are still prevalent.
Right.
Did you ever think about going back to the game?
No question. But what happened was that as time was going on early in my marriage, I was considering that. And a few times came very close to getting back in. What started happening, cats that I knew began to drop like flies.
Yeah.
And
that's what happened to me too. When you see everything around you dying,
man,
you know that ain't the direction you need to go.
I mean, it was like I felt the death angel on my shoulder.
Yeah. And the craziest thing is, like, when you had just left somebody, or somebody you just talked to them the night before, and all of a sudden you find out that morning that something happened, and you like, oh man, it could have been me. And then it sort of puts things in perspective.
Absolutely.
And it was back in my era. I'm a few years behind you, but in my era, it was the same thing, to where, man, you just saw death so much to where you were callous to death. Death didn't have the same, like some people. I have friends now, and they're in their 40s, and they're like, I've never been to a funeral. Man, I couldn't tell you how many funerals I've been to. I couldn't even give you a number. And a lot of funerals I've been to have been young men that have been under the age of 20. Mm-hmm. And to me, if somebody dies in their 80s, we're sad. But they lived a lot of life.
Right.
The tragedy is when somebody dies before they even get to adulthood. and that was taken from him. So when you were when you were working the jobs and you were doing that kind of stuff, was it the only thing that kept you from going there was because your friends had been being knocked off?
Well, first off,
or you just had no desire for it?
Well, first, at 17, I didn't think I was going to live to see 24. I just didn't. And there were three things that happened in my life that changed my trajectory. First thing was, of course, walking away from the game. Folks thought I lost my mind. They told me, you done lost your mind. Nigga. The second time was when I married my wife. Because it was just, that was not my get down. But I found the woman of my dream.
Wow.
And the third time was when I got saved. And all three of those decisions.
When you say got saved, what do you mean by that?
So, I was raised Baptist. Father's a Baptist preacher. He married my wife and I. That's all I knew. And what ended up happening during my soul journey, around 1988 to be exact, came across some people, two of which, both of them still alive to this day. First person, whose name Lafayette Boyd. Lafayette now is a bishop in the Apostolic Organization. The second person, the lady who was my godmother, whose name is Ivy Allen. And those two people shared the apostolic doctrine with me concerning the oneness of God, the baptism in the name of Jesus, and the infilling of the Holy Spirit, which comes with the initial sign of speaking in other tongues, Spirit God giveth utterance. And so this was all foreign to me. But they had invited my wife and I, Angie and I, to this church called Peace Apostolic. And a little short black man ended up becoming my pastor and father in the gospel, comes out to preach. And we're sitting in the pews, and I'm wondering, what is this little black man going to say to me? I've been around preachers all my life. And he preached a message, which I remember to this day, called Standing in Defense of the Gospel. And I remember being in the pews asking questions internally. Every question that I asked internally, well, what about this? Fill in the blank. It was as if he was speaking directly to me and answered each one biblically, chapter and verse. And that encounter and what took place with my wife and I, which we're called Holy Ghost twins because we got filled side by side at the altar, changed the entire trajectory of my life for eternity, as well as also the trajectory of my family. Right, exactly.
Of your family.
Exactly.
My mother used to call Bishop Swansea, Sin Killing Swansea.
That's him.
Sin Killing Swansea. But that's awesome that those three incidents transpired. And you said one was giving up the game.
Right.
Two was marrying Angie.
Right.
And three was getting filled with the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
But then was, how did having children change your life?
That made and brought about a sense of purpose that superseded anything that I could ever imagine, because I realized I was responsible and accountable for someone who didn't ask to come here. And I owed them my best because they didn't ask to come here.
They didn't ask to come.
So, in conjunction just with family at large, it became a great motivation where I realized that, a lot of times cats say, I got to do what I got to do to provide for my family. But you got to be careful with that, because sometimes doing what you got to do or what you think you got to do can cause it to be more detriment to your family. Because if you're not here and you're either dead or behind bars.
That's true. Yeah. It's so funny just sitting here listening to your story. It reminds me of the biblical story where the young man's brothers sold him into slavery. And then after he got sold into slavery, he went to They tried to leave him for dead. They said, no, you can't kill him, but you're going to do this. But the point that I'm making is throughout his life, it was just incident after incident that transpired to where he was being tested and he was being strengthened so that it was preparing him for what he was to face in his future. And me listening to your story, like the different things that transpired in your life, it was a setup for the place that you're at now. And in that place, you had to go through all these different adversities and go through this stuff. But when was it that you felt like life shifted and you got to the place to where life began to be better? Do you think it was when you bought the Service Spoon, or was it before that?
It was before the Spoon, and it was getting saved was the apex of my spiritual life up until that point.
It's the dunamis.
Right. It was definitely, I received that dunamis, that dunamis power.
The ability to do would beyond what you could ever think.
But the thing was that it's just like I've said before to other cats, and that is that you could have all the heart and or power, but if you don't understand the technique of how to use it, like a lot of cats that they just got that dog in them where they just ain't going down. You can hit me in my jaw, I'm getting back up. You can bust my eye, I'm getting back up. But they don't know how to hold their hand. They don't know how to actually hit a jab. They don't know how to get across. They don't have the technique down. And so what it was that I knew I wasn't no punk, and that I had power and I had fortitude and temerity and a mitigated gall, but I had no technique. And so in regards to the things of life to better my family from a legitimate standpoint. And it wasn't until I met another man by the name of Dr. A.C. Mitchell.
Yeah, a mentor.
Yeah, he mentored me. He is a physician, well-known physician, but he truly is a very strong Black man who just so happens to be a doctor. One of the largest benefactors of Howard University. Dr. Mitchell's probably somewhere in his mid-80s right now, early mid-80s. But I ended up doing a cold call when I was working in the hospital business and came across him, and he took me under his wing, and he taught me technique
and finesse
in business. And that is when things altogether changed. I had the 1-2 punch. I had the dunamis. I had the doctrine. I had the blood of Jesus, which was applied for the remission of my sin. And then I learned how to play this business game.
I read the other day, just in hearing that, it said a lot of people think strength is the ability to hold on. But true strength comes from being able to let go.
Real talk. Real talk. Very, 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 very
true. True strength is the ability to let go. And a lot of people can't let go of the connections or the different things that transpired in their past. They can't let it go. And that's the thing that they suffer from. I just think that it's dope that your whole setup was for this. When was it when you purchased the spoon?
Well, we bought the spoon from Angie's dad, who I call the creator. He started the restaurant back in 1983, and I call myself the innovator. We bought it from him in 2004.
2004.
Yeah. So it's been now 16 years since we bought the restaurant. And, it's been it's been a ride. We definitely have expanded. We put some systems in when we first bought it. And the truth of the matter is my wife didn't want to buy it. In fact, we came close to getting a divorce over buying it.
Oh, wow.
Because she had grew up in it and she saw so much that really didn't appeal to her in terms as far as how it had been ran. And she didn't know what my get down was coming out of hospital administration. All she knew was that I was husband and daddy when I came home. I didn't come home as an executive. I came home as a husband and daddy. So the acumen that I brought to the table to move things and move the dial, she didn't know. So when we bought it, she thought that it was just a money pit. And it took about 6 months to turn things around. But that was probably one of the toughest 6 months as a married couple that we ever had. But once things turned around, it got better.
I used to have something on the menu. I had my name on the menu, and it lasted for probably a few years, and then all of a sudden, my item got deleted off the menu. So I don't know. I don't know.
Your daughter's name is still there.
My daughter's name is still there, but it's not my name. So perhaps after this podcast, we can sort of find some type of way to get my name back on the menu. But
you can talk to the CEO, the chief operating officer.
Now you're going to delegate.
All right. I always delegate, man. That's part of the successful platform.
The Servant Spoon. What do you say the Servant Spoon is to this community?
Well, this as you mentioned early on in the beginning, the Spoon is a landmark and a staple in the community, but that has come about because of the uplift and the outreach that has been shown even prior to Angie and I buying the restaurant from her dad. Her father was always a giving, individual. One thing, he never turned down someone that didn't have money and they were hungry. We took it to another level when we bought it, where we actually instituted with our foundation, which is called the Bella Vita Foundation, where we literally took the Serving Spoon down to Skid Row. And we would do this 6 nights a week catering truck. The 6 in San Pedro.
I remember that.
From 6 to 11, Monday through Saturday evenings. And at that time, we had the only mobile EBT contract in the state. And being down there during that time, not only were we, feeding folks, but we also had with our program, with our foundation, where there were job training platform with different areas ranging from culinary to mortuary services to healthcare in terms as far as CNA and LVN outreach to provide an educational platform for individuals and then transition them into work.
What would you say a high point of the Spoon are? Like for me, the times I remember is I'll never forget in my life when Obama won for president and you had a DJ out in front and you also had people partying because for the first time in our lives, we saw something that we never thought that we could even imagine seeing. And that was a black man becoming president, but people in the community came and we celebrated and we partied. Another thing I remember is when my nephew, your son, was drafted, we had 8 kids that did their signing out in front.
Oh, that was actually when he signed to go to UCLA. This was
signed to go to UCLA.
It was actually a total of 14
kids men from Los Angeles that decided that they were going to do their declaration letter. They were going to declare where they were going
exactly
here at the Serving Spoon. So those are things to me that were just like high points to where I was like, I'll never forget that moment at the Spoon. What were some of the moments that you say since you've taken over ownership that stand out? Didn't Obama?
No, Obama did not and has not been here. I do know Congresswoman Karen Bass, who was a dear friend of mine. She was to bring him here, but Air Force One landed after 3 p.m. this one particular afternoon. We closed at 3, so we didn't get that nod. Actually, Roscoe's got that nod.
Oh man,
and that's all good. It's plenty to go around.
Obama special on me.
They have the Obama special now.
So since they got the Obama special, man, I get the Jaime special. Considering that Obama didn't show up and I'm here, how about that?
Well, you know what, and so was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton has actually been here, so we didn't get the top nod with President Obama, but we did and have had. Bill Clinton, who stayed here for actually about 2.5 hours. He had a real good time.
I remember that. What's your highlight? I want to hear what your best time was, or it was a day at the Spoon that you'll never forget.
It's something in spite of all the entertainers, athletes, politicians, folks from around the way that come up in here. It's really the folks from around the way. And, even with the politicians, entertainers, and athletes, we've been graced by their presence, but I really do believe a lot of that comes about because of the fact that they just feel at home here. So with that being said, despite all of the fanfare and things that have happened, there are things that have taken place here that have just made such a difference in the lives of me and my wife. I can mention one in particular. There was a woman who came through here. She was sitting at one of our tables and, someone came to Angie and said, there's a woman sitting at the table and she's crying. And so my wife went to her to check on her and everything. And she said, I'm just, it's my birthday and I'm just going through a lot of things, but I'm going to be fine. So, Angie just spent a little time with her, walked away. But then she told one of our hostesses at the time who just saw her today, by the way. She's no longer working here, but her name was Cheryl Solomon, sweetheart of a woman. And Angie told her, Cheryl went over to her, and Cheryl had always was notorious. She was instant in prayer. And Cheryl went to her, talked to her a little bit. They walked outside. Cheryl prayed for her. The woman left. Then about a week later, a card came thanking us here at the Spoon and Cheryl specifically about the fact that she was here to have her last meal. She was leaving here to go commit suicide.
Oh, wow.
And
wow. And God used you guys as a vehicle to save this woman's life. That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's the kind of stuff that people never hear, those stories, and people never hear that kind of stuff. And that's awesome. I think it's beautiful. And do you keep in contact with the lady?
No, I haven't seen the lady since, to my knowledge. But there are things like that.
Man, that's extremely touching. It's things like that that allows you to deal with the chaos that comes along with running a business. Moments like that make it make sense. Yeah, that's dope, bro. That's dope. I've never even heard that story. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, man. Shoot. You don't be having me crying, man. Come on, man. You gotta do something about that one.
I'm gonna take care of this.
Yeah. But I think this is beautiful. Those are the type of things and then also when I think of the Spoon, I think of all the people that you've employed and all the people that you've touched their lives. And the beautiful thing is you provided opportunities to where these kids come in and they're young and you groom them and you prepare them for the next stages in their lives. And like the Bible says, what you do to the least of my children, you do also unto me. So I think your blessing comes from the fact that you're kind of hard and you're tough on them, but at the same time, you're sowing into so many different lives.
True.
So many different lives. Have you had success stories from people that used to work here that are doing stuff with their lives now?
Yeah, we've had success stories and we've had stories. But we are known for times past for hiring the unhirables. And actually, I received an award from the NAACP. I was nominated some years ago to be what's called a Man of Valor. And I was in some tall cotton with that, man. What's my man that did Predator? Bill
Arnold
Duke.
Schwarzenegger?
No, Duke.
Yeah.
Bill Duke.
Yeah,
Bill Duke.
Bill Duke.
It was the chief of police for USC. A few other,
What was the guy's chief of police for USC?
I don't remember his name, but
it wasn't Lockley?
That sounds familiar.
Okay, yeah. One of my friend's dad, his father was the chief of police for
USC. And then there was another gentleman who was president CEO of a credit union. But nonetheless, so I felt honored to be in that company. And the reason why they nominated me was because I was known for hiring the unhirables. Had no idea that they had been watching.
What makes somebody unhirable?
Well, they could be tatted up from head to toe. They could have, the ex-felons.
I know. I was taken one time. I walked in and the young man was the busser. And when he was doing the bussing, he closed his eyes or blinked or something. And you could see he had gang tattoos on his eyebrows. Then he had stuff on his face and he had it on his neck.
Right.
And I'm looking like, man, this dude is going to have a problem because the thing with the Service Spoon is we're in Inglewood, and Inglewood is a certain territory known for having different affiliations and different gangs are here. But then the thing with the Service Spoon is everybody from all different neighborhoods in the city, they feel comfortable here and they come here. But when you see a guy like that, I can see that being an unhirable situation.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, you hired this kid.
And he actually had the tats were on his eyelids. And funny story about him, I might get myself in trouble in this, but it's all right, is that I remember his brother worked here. And his brother asked, we had our opening, and his brother asked if I would interview his brother. And I'm like, man, look, I'm really at my wit's end with dealing with a lot of things that I don't want to deal with anymore. So he said, well, please just interview my brother. So I said, I'm going to come up here. So he came up here, and of course, I'm seeing all these tats. And I'm like, look here, man. I said, I'm going to tell you, I've had some bad experiences, and this has nothing to do with you personally. I mean, no disrespect. But I said, man, before I interview you, man, you're going to have to give me $500.
You told this kid
before
he gets hired,
before he has an interview,
he's going to have to pay you to have the interview?
That's what I told him.
Yeah, I don't know. I might.
Take that back. It was 300. It wasn't 5.
Yeah, because 5 was a lot.
It was 300. He said, okay. Just like that. Okay. Walked away. Next day, he showed up and peeled off $300 bills.
So you just had him go rob somebody to get this $300. Like he just went and robbed somebody. He just went beat up somebody. He just stole somebody from somebody. Because you put that pressure on this kid to just rob somebody. Let me find out. This kid almost caught a case because he tried to prove something.
See, you putting a whole lot on something, man. But he came and he peeled off them $300 bills.
Did you take the $300?
Yeah, I took the $300, and I interviewed him. And during the interview, there was something that I saw in him that I didn't see before. Not because of the $300, but because...
That's something you didn't see before.
But it was because of something that I just saw in him. And I said, I'm going to give this kid a chance. So not only did I give him his $300 back, I gave him a job. And he was with us for about 2 years. He got in a little trouble, had to go on vacation for a bit.
But he came back when he got back from vacation?
Yeah, looked out for him while he was on vacation. And when he got off vacation, we rehired him, which is another thing people know about us, is that we have a somewhat of a revolving door sometimes where we let folks go and they come back. But he was and unfortunately he's back behind the walls now. But I love him dearly. And another individual, when I received that award from NAACP, I started off my acceptance speech by talking about a young man that I hired and fired for the 5th and final time. So I had a cat that had history, and we went through a few things. But the reason being was that he was 20 when I hired him. He was 22 years of age. He had 7 kids by 6 different baby mamas.
Wow, that sounds.
And I'm like, man, his mother brought him up here, and she was desiring some help for her son. And he was half black and half Korean.
Oh, wow.
And the Korean side, she was Korean. His dad was black from Louisiana, and they didn't meet in the service. So I don't know how that happened. But but nonetheless, so because of his Korean side of his family, which was her parents, didn't acknowledge him. And so I saw a lot of pain, and he was tatted up everywhere as well. And so let's call him Country. Went ahead and hired him. Country, no one worked more diligently than him when he showed up to work and was not inebriated. But if he didn't show up, of course, anybody could work better than somebody that don't show up. And if he came to work inebriated, that was an issue. But when he was on deck, nobody could fade him before, during, or after. No one has been able to touch his work ethic when he was on point. But it happened where his liabilities began to outweigh his assets. Yeah, so I had to let him go. And I think one of the few times, it might have been the second time I let him go. And anybody that knows me knows sometimes I'm going to be very direct, because sometimes you have to speak the language of those that you're talking to in a way that they understand that you know what you're saying. And so I told him when I fired him, I said, you think you're being disrespected? And I said, son, let me explain to you the difference between disrespect and discipline. I said, being disrespectful would be if I'm going into you the way I'm going into you, and I've never shown that I cared about you over time and with consistency. I said, that would be disrespectful because there's nothing that warrants that. But I've shown beyond a shadow of a doubt over time and with consistency that I have your best interest at hand. So you got to take this as discipline. And he moved from that in a positive way.
Do you still have relationships with him?
Man, I said I fired him for the 5th and final time. He's in jail right to this day. And that 5th and final time, though, he had at that time 12 kids.
Wow.
With 11 different baby mamas.
Yeah, he had a lot going on.
He had too much stuff.
What are some of the things that the Serving Spoon does for the community?
Well, our most recent thing, because of the pandemic, we actually had a Serving Spoon Pay It Forward pandemic program, and we did that and had that advertisement on KGLH where we had invited listeners to call in and nominate a person or family that had been stricken and impacted negatively by the pandemic. And from that, they would call a number, leave the information, and then we would go through and select one family or one person per week, was the initial rollout, and sponsor them with $500. We would give $500. And it was supposed to have been an 8-week program, 10-week program, I think it was, and $500 a week. But that didn't pan out that way. We ended up giving a lot more than just one per week.
That's beautiful.
And
beautiful.
that was.
So with you having 3 sons,
2 sons,
I'm saying 3 children.
Okay. Unless you my son, you my third, man.
Man,
there you go.
Sometimes you think sometimes you
That's
think,
all right. That's all right.
I'm your daddy. But with you having 3 children, and what you see in the state of our world and the conditions in which these young men have to charter their course, what do you feel are some things that we could do as a people to better our situation?
I think, which is one of my favorite words, is being accountable. Accountability is something that puts you in the proper light where you have to make a conscious choice. And I was just sharing this with you earlier before we start rolling, and that everybody's familiar with YouTube. And when you go to a YouTube link, it starts at 0 and say it's a 2-minute YouTube clip, right? If you start at the 30-second mark, you miss the true context and content, at least of what that clip is. By starting at 0, that allows you to be exposed to what the totality of that clip is.
Get the context of it.
Get the context and the content, and your response is based on 0 to 2 minutes, which means you're accountable for that information that you have in front of you. And if we as a people don't start at ground zero, and ground zero is that of what Michael Jackson said in one of his famous songs, I'm starting with that man in the mirror, then we can go ahead and start at point 20 second, 25 second. It doesn't make we still have to deal with us.
How do you teach accountability, though, to a generation that hasn't been accountable to anything?
That's the $1 trillion question, man. This is something that, we have ventured here at this restaurant to do with those that have worked here and have come through our doors. I definitely did that with my children. But as the older you get, the harder it is.
You're right.
And it's they talk about the reach one, teach one. That's true, but it's still very difficult because old habits are hard to break.
and it's generational things, like things that go unaddressed. So with diabetes, they say a lot of times diabetes is genetic, but sometimes it's because your father ate a certain way. You pick up that same diet and you eat a certain way, and then we're all fighting the same conditions. But I'm thinking, for me, with the things that are transpiring in our society and us as a black people, I think all these, with George Floyd dying,
Right.
with Mike Brown, with what was the Breonna Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
with all these things that have transpired, I think that is bringing us closer together as a people. But I don't want it to be something that brings us together, but we don't do anything. Like, I look at for me, was a kid going to Morehouse College, I remember seeing the counters where blacks couldn't eat at the counter at the restaurant,
Right.
or they couldn't ride on the front of the bus. But
Right.
at the end of the day, the same things that they were complaining about during the civil rights movement is the same thing that we complain about now. And what have we accomplished since then? And not to take anything from Martin Luther King. I mean, he had a dream, but his dream is still unfulfilled. So what can we do as a people to, I love the fact that you're hiring these young black men and you're hiring these young black women and you're doing stuff for them. But what can we do as a people that can better the plight for and make the world a better place for our children?
You know, that is such a loaded question, and I don't claim to have the answer or the remedy to that, because I don't. I will say, whatever my 2 cents is that by being an example yourself, it speaks more
I love that.
than what you can say with your mouth.
I love that.
And, you know,
Let your light shine.
let your light shine.
Let your light shine.
Yeah. And, you know, it's about light shining in a dark and perverse generation. And that speaks louder than anything that you can say. And because one thing that it can do is provoke someone to jealousy, to ask, what's your secret? How did you do this? See, that's the good jealousy, to want to know how, not to be provoked to jealousy where you want to covet or to take or to bring about demise. Because even my wife calls haters confused admirers.
Confused admirers. I love it.
You know, and but the thing is, though, is that, you know, the real gain is that of being able to convey what moves need to be made to move to different levels. And that has to be sought out by someone that wants to move. It can't just be, and it won't just be given to you. You have to seek that out.
But like, for me, I know that you're involved in politics. And for me, I've just sort of been disgruntled by politicians making promises to do things. And then once they get in position or election, the promises that they made prior, it seems as if they get convenient amnesia, and then they go away until it's their next term to run.
Right.
And it's been a few times you've asked me to do different things with different politicians, and I don't really have faith in them. What makes you have faith in these politicians?
Oh, I don't have faith in politicians. The one thing that I trust in regards to people, I count on their nature.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not going to ask a cat to bark.
Oh, yeah, I remember. That was my saying for a while. It's an unfair expectation.
But if I know that it's a cat, I know there's certain attributes that are inherent
to the cat.
To the cat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have situations that I don't have to rely on the cat barking. I rely on the cat's nature that works to the benefit of not only myself, but to the people. And so that's it, because anything other than that, you're wasting your time. If you're looking for people to change, God doesn't even force change upon us.
You're right. We all created free moral agents.
Exactly. So anything where you're looking for something to, or someone to change, you're fooling yourself. So I'm just going, and what I do is use the inertia and the nature of things and those around me to the benefit, not to their demise, though, because that's not my get down. My get down is not to cut someone else's line to extend my line. I just extend my line. Thus, your line becomes shorter. But I'm not even extending my line to make your line shorter. I'm just a progressive forward thinker. And I have no problem in sharing, the game or sharing the concepts. But it has to be with someone that has skin in the game too. You can't just show up and expect for someone to give you something.
Yeah. Yeah. Angie, you want to come in and say hi? You don't want to come and say hi? Yeah. But I just think that with this.
That was my wife. She told me I got a Zoom call at 3:30. So.
Okay. Well, in closing, with all the things that we've talked about and discussed, where do you go from here? What's on your agenda now? What's the next move from J.C. Johnson?
And by the way, the J.C. comes from, because my name is Jerry Crosley Johnson. I'm senior. I have a junior, but the J.C. comes from, I have to say this in closing, is that my father died in 1998, and he thought that he was a failure because he had nothing to leave to his children because he had squandered it all in his early years gambling. But I told him there was two things that he left that superseded any amount of money that he ever could have left. And that was one, because he was making about $70,000, $75,000 a year back in the late 50s, early 60s. That's a lot of money back then. And so I said, one, you didn't leave. My biological dad was there in the house during my whole upbringing. And two, he showed me a work ethic. Even though he was became ill after we lost everything, and he had osteoarthritis and he had multiple strokes, he still would deliver telephone books on people's front porches, making $50, $60 a week just to say I can bring
and nothing
something
compared
home.
to what he was accustomed to.
Absolutely nothing compared.
But he still showed you hustle.
He showed me hustle, and he showed me a work ethic. So Pops died in 98. I didn't cry when he died because there were so many things that were happening about and around with the family, and I had to be the voice of reason, so I didn't even have a chance to grieve. So 10 years later, fast forward, that time my daughter, this was 2008, Jessica was in college. Jerry had just gotten a scholarship to go to UCLA. We had bought the business back in 2004. A
lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on. I thought about the fact that my father died thinking that he was a failure. And I projected myself thinking or being in that situation. What must it feel like to be a father on your deathbed and saying to your son that I was a failure as a dad? And it finally hit me, man. And I just, that grieving process happened right then and there, all at one time. And we were in the kitchen, my wife and I, our kitchen at the house. And if it wasn't for her being by my side, I probably would have gone over the edge, man. It was bad. So when I finally came to after crying profusely for well over an hour, and wasn't just crying, man, it was bad. It was bad, bro. Yeah. And so I had this epiphany. Now, my name is Jerry Crosley Johnson, but my dad's name was J.C. Johnson. He's from the South, and y'all know that in the South, they give you initials. So his actual name was J.C. Johnson. So I started going by J.C. in 2008 when I would introduce myself. Even though folks know me as Jerry, I still, of course, answer to Jerry. That's my name. That's my government name. Yeah. But I go by J.C. to say, in a funny way, Dad, you didn't fail.
Yeah, because you're still here.
Yeah. And
I read somewhere the other day, it said a person dies twice. The day that they take their last breath and the day that the last person stops talking or mentioning their name.
Right.
So I think it's dope when somebody is still around. So the fact that you could keep having people say his name, your father will never die.
Right.
And I think that's dope.
Right.
That's dope.
Right.
What's next for Mr. Johnson? Are we going to see serving spoons like Denny's restaurants all across the world? Are we going to see something? Is it next something on the agenda? Because I know you're that business mogul, that you got all kind of things going on. Is there something that you want to share?
Well, the one thing that I will share right now is that we're in the process. We've entered escrow in that of developing a ghost kitchen.
What's the ghost kitchen?
Ghost Kitchen is a platform that allows multiple kitchens to or restaurants to actually cook or prepare their business concept meal and have them delivered through different mobile platforms, i.e. Uber Eats, Grubhub,
Stuff
et
like
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're now in escrow to do a build out of 20 kitchens. And within that 20 kitchen platform, we'll have everything from one extreme to a halal kitchen concept to a kosher kitchen concept. Is almost peace in the Middle East, and then everything in between, and which will allow us to kind of step back away from the day-to-day operations, of course, of a restaurant, because opening up other restaurants means you're dealing with the operations, but moving to, and we'll still be here at the Serving Spoon, of course, business as usual, but this will be a platform that will allow other restaurant concepts to enter into this game without the cash outlay that it would for a regular brick and mortar, because they're not having to do all that. It's all delivery.
Great idea. Great idea, especially during the pandemic and the things that we're going through right now. We don't know what life is going to look like on the other side of this. So it's good to be ahead of something. I think that's dope. Well, I just like to thank you, my brother, for taking the time out to do the huddle, man. The huddle was something that I dreamt about. I have so many friends and family that have such great stories, and I wanted to create something to where I could motivate. The things that you went through in life weren't independent of you just going through something. You went through these things in life because it's other people that are trying to find their way out of the maze. And if we can inspire people by our lives, then it makes the things we went through not in vain. So I wanted to come up with the huddle just to have conversations with my friends and just talk about, things that can motivate and inspire that next generation. So I appreciate you, my brother, Jerry Johnson, for coming on the huddle. And I hope to see you again sometime soon.
Man, shut up.
Hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, right. Like, I can't get rid of it.
Hey, do I have to pay for this?
Man, look, much love and respect. I'm proud of you, man. And you keep on keeping on, man, and just still maintain and stay focused in your lane, brother, because this is your lane. Nobody can be in your lane but you.
I appreciate that.
And just make the best out of that. And when after you've done your best, you know what you got to do? Do better.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Right on, brother. All right.
Introducing Tequila Gran Diamante, an ultra-premium luxury tequila crafted from 100% blue agave grown in the rich red volcanic soil of Los Altos de Jalisco. At their award-winning distillery, each batch undergoes open vat fermentation, inspired by the motto, nothing but the best. Every sip offers refined flavor and exceptional quality. Experience fine tequila elevated, Tequila Gran Diamante. Please enjoy responsibly for those 21 and over.